I often think of Christmas as the second Thanksgiving of the year. Of course, it's a time to be merry, jolly with people we love, but not everybody has that opportunity. So wherever you are in the world, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you all the best with loved ones and great food and great times. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you on the video. Merry Christmas. Hey guys, still sick, still doing videos. Dune Fox. I just reviewed the Direwolf 3. So this is a new series for Flydigi, which aims to bring something similar to the Direwolf lines of product. Having played with it a little bit, I would consider this to be their new entry-level most controller in the lineup. This has been sent for review. All opinions are my own. No money exchanged hands, and they get to see the video at the same time as everybody else. All right, let's just open it. Inside some cardboard, a manual, a dongle, which looks very much like the one from the Direwolf 3, and the cheapest possible cable ever to be bundled with a controller. That is such a cheap cable. Oh my lord. Why, Flydigi? You're killing me. This is so cheap, it's funny. I would expect that with like some cheap alarm clock that is USB-C, but not a controller. Anyways, here we are, guys. Oh, it's speaking, guys. It's speaking. That one has a little bit of a white sand kind of look. It's a little more brownish. If we put them next to each other, it might come across a little better. So this is definitely more in the very light brownish tones, whereas this is very much in the light grayish tones. In terms of feel, this is also extremely similar throughout the entire thing. The front is extremely smooth. The back is ever so, like, just has a little bit of a thing going, but it's still very, very smooth by all standards. The buttons are glossy. The D-pad feels pretty much like the front. Everything is membrane in the front. Your shoulders are tactile. Your triggers are Hall effect, just as the sticks. You don't have any back buttons or anything like that. No pogo pins, no 3.5mm jack. No switch, a USB-C up top, no pairing buttons. You still have the Flydigi branding, and it still retains kind of that Xbox-like ergonomic and feel. It does feel cheaper, and that's why I think this is to be their entry-level most controller. It also has slightly softer or not as tight sticks in comparison to the Direwolf 3. If you were to have them both one next to each other, you can tell right away by picking them up that they are different, but they're also very similar. Some key differences, and one of the bigger ones, minus the sticks that don't have exactly the same tension, is the D-pad. The D-pad is not tactile like the Direwolf. We have a membrane D-pad here. We have no center pivot underneath. Like, you might see that there seems to be a skirt to the D-pad. It's not like they're detached from whatever base that they're sitting on. Not unique, because it's not the only controller to do that, but you don't really have that kind of already pushing you in a direction when you're trying to do a Hadouken. But that's going to be one of the bigger differences versus the Direwolf, which is going to be the D-pad. You don't have the extra buttons, so some people like them, some people don't, so that depends on you. This one you can connect to your Switch, iOS, Android. This controller does have rumble, by the way, not HD rumble, just the grip, feels good, pretty much on par with first-party rotary. The Circle plus A is the dongle, Circle plus B is Switch, and Circle plus Y is Bluetooth X input. And one thing I wanted to show you guys is this controller does not have gyro. Just know that it is not part of the Dune Fox controller. Talking about gyro, let's jump straight into PC and see what differences are when it comes to software, polling, testing of the sticks and D-pad and everything. Starting with software, and it's even simpler here than any other Flydigi controller. To the left, you have your onboard config. This is where you can import or export your profile, rename them as well. To the right, you can save your profile. Top right is where you update. And then, I don't know why when you click the gear, you have connect the cooler. This is for a laptop cooler, so this is not related to the controller itself. And if you look at settings while you're in the splash screen, you have general, where you can address some things to the software, the language, and so on and so forth. All right, let's go back to the Dune Fox. So of course, here you can do some quick adjust, but it's basically just a vibration on the splash screen. test, this is where you can test your buttons, make sure everything works. You also see the polling rate. And switch mode is the exact same as PC config, but it's specifically for when you're going to be on the switch mode. Back to PC config, clicking on buttons, you can address each of the buttons on the controller. You can restore your settings if you made some changes you don't like. And if you look at function bottom left, you can do some quick switch configuration where it allows you to change a profile at a shortcut. You can also change the sleep time and local mapping setup. So going back to addressing the buttons, you can change them all, but you can also map macros. And also you can put keyboard keys, which is pretty nice, and multifunction will let you put multiple at once. Joystick, you can fully address the curve of the Dune Fox. You can also put the sticks to do keyboard keys, but you can also do mouse control with your sticks. And then of course, you can address also the dead zone. You can have the left and right joystick be independent in terms of settings as well. Triggers, pretty straightforward. You can address the inner and outer dead zone. So if you want something of a hair trigger, you can kind of make it yourself. And then general is just to address intensity of your vibration and test it. And that is it. That's the software. It's pretty slim in pickings, but still nonetheless, considering that it's an entry-level product, it's amazing that you even have one. So great job, Flydigi. Moving now to our aim labs testing, and I was expecting to have at least same results as the Direwolf, and indeed it was the case, but what I did not expect is that I would end up having better numbers, and I was cracking the 30,000 with this controller, which is bonkers, but I know the reason why, because in terms of the stick, they feel identical to the Direwolf, so they're both extremely great. The one difference is not so much in software or the sensors, it is in the hardware. The tension of those sticks are lower, and because the sticks from Flydigi controllers are so good for precision, having a lower tension allows you to be like a little faster, a little swifter with your moves, and I was able to leverage that to get better scoring in aim labs in general. So I am 100% accounting the higher number because of the tension of those sticks, which ultimately is a benefit if we're talking aiming alone, at least in my preference and the way that I like to use these very highly precise sticks. When looking at the D-pad, not having a center pivot on a membrane kind of made it a little harder, so it's not my favorite stick, but it still was a lot easier to use, even if not perfect. I was not really getting a whole lot of misregister on the jumpings as I did with the Direwolf, so that one was doing a little better overall, but just the corners are sharp, there's no center pivot. I like that it's membrane, it feels good, but not my perfect D-pad, not my ideal D-pad, but one I would still prefer over the one found in the Direwolf, at least for fighting games inputs. But if we go to Gamepad Tester, you'll see that it's not fully perfect. While we're here, I did test the average error of circularity. I don't believe that having a square is a problem. I think it's better, it's raw input, but they don't offer the option to have it software corrected for a circle. So if that's something that you prefer, just know that on the Dune Fox, it is not an option. When looking at the D-pad, if I was trying to rock it from an adjacent arrow, I would get misclick on the upper arrow, but not the bottom one, which was a little surprising, not something I expected. So I was trying to look if the controller had some kind of a slant on the D-pad. I've seen that in other controllers. For the most part, kind of rings back to what I was saying, not a perfect D-pad, functionable, serviceable, not the controller I would go for specifically for that, but I wouldn't mind switching to a fighting game if I already have that one in hand. And while we're here, I did test snapback. There was zero snapback on this controller at all, so great for Smash if you play on the Switch. When looking at performance, I did my usual, tested the sticks, and in terms of pulling rates, I'll put the numbers on screen. And yeah, let's continue towards the conclusion and the end of this video. This is very much a lesser quote-unquote Direwolf 3. I say lesser, but I did get better performance when it comes to stick testing, but I know why. It's because of the tension. When you have sticks this good, and this is definitely one of the big advantages of the Dune Fox, it's the same sticks. They're so good. Flydigi with Hall Effect, really, it's very on point. They have lower tension. The benefit is when it comes to aiming, when you have sticks that are this precise, it's actually a great asset to have. However, I would think that because they probably don't have a lot of tension right off the box,
it's probably a controller that will give out faster. Not so much because it will drift. It shouldn't happen, it's Hall effect. But the tension being so low, it's probably gonna keep losing tension over time. So I feel like those sticks are gonna get loose faster. The D-pad, it also did perform better for me when talking about Street Fighter. And though you would still get accidental clicks, especially from the up arrow, it wasn't as apparent when I was doing Half Moon or Duken or Dragon Punch motions. It's not my favorite D-pad by any means. It's not the best, but it's a D-pad I prefer to the Direwolf. I'm not a big fan of these very steep corners that you have here, but for the most part, I do find that it works better. I am disappointed with the fact that you have no switch to change your options. Now, having the switch is kind of a bummer, but I'm still back to the one thing that I also think is amazing about the Dune Fox is that you still have software support, which is crazy considering the price point. But here's another issue that I have with this one. The only place that I've seen the Dune Fox being sold so far is on AliExpress, and it's pretty much between 30 and 35, which is the same price as the Direwolf. The Direwolf, despite having sticks that are a little harder to maneuver, it's still amazing sticks. Despite not having the D-pad, it's still very close in performance. You have extra buttons, you have more software options, you have gyro, you have a switch, you have an acceptable cable in the box. Not that this shouldn't matter a whole lot, but you know, ultimately, if they're at the same price, I still don't think I would go for the Dune Fox, which sounds counter to what I've been experiencing. However, I don't think this is a controller that will last 2 years. I really don't. So I feel like the Direwolf would be a better investment, not only in terms of value, but also in terms of longevity, from the point of view that I see them both at the same price. If you find this one for $5 to $10 less, then that's the one I would recommend. At that price point, I mean, even for the Direwolf, it's not really expensive. So even if you have to change your controller every year or so, chances are you're gonna have a better, stronger, more impressive model by a year. I don't think it's that big a deal as long as you know that you're gonna take values of the advantages that this one has over the Direwolf. But if you feel like 2 extra buttons, gyro is the way to go, then the Direwolf is the better pick. But then gyro is not perfect when it comes to the Direwolf. Direwolf is definitely a better Switch controller. I'll give it that. Whereas I think this could be potentially a better aiming exclusively and then fighting game on the side, better D-pad, as long as you don't care for something that probably won't last more than a year. And so there it is, guys. This is my review of the Dune Fox. I'm super happy to see Flydigi enter a new series of controller on the market because they've been killing it from where I stand. Great product, potentially cannibalizing some of their own sales. But truly, when we think about it, as long as you're a Flydigi customer, I mean, they win either way. This could potentially take sales away from the Direwolf, or the Direwolf could potentially take sales away from the Dune Fox. It's definitely not one of those where I would suggest having both. And in some scenarios, Dune Fox will be the pick. And most others, I would say, Direwolf should be the one to go for. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, if you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comment box. Please consider doing all the YouTube things, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.